Hey there and welcome to SI Now. I'm Ryan Aselta, he's Robin Lundberg, and it's official. LiAngelo and LaMelo Ball are now professional basketball players. That's right, the Ball brothers made their pro debut on Tuesday in Lithuania in what was dubbed the Big Baller Brand Challenge. LeVar on hand, Mom Tina on hand as the Balls combined for 29 points in a win. Now, Robin, the game aired live on the web Tuesday afternoon. At one point, there were over 150,000 people watching the game live coming from Lithuania. When you look at the attention that this generated, their first game, which was a win that both guys talked about afterwards, which was important to them, did this validate the attention LeVar has been getting?
Well, validate is a very strong word, right? Because some people will say nothing could possibly validate it. It confirmed that people are interested in LeVar Ball and the Ball family. You know, I kind of laugh at some of these coaches and other people making a huge deal of this. It's basketball. So if you don't want to hear about LeVar Ball, you can stop paying attention. The real truth of the matter is people do care. I mean, people were watching. We were watching in a conference room, you know, seeing how LiAngelo was playing. Kind of looked like a small baller at first. He rounded into form. And LaMelo has more game, more natural game. He's smooth about it. I'm fascinated by this aspect of LeVar Ball. I truly am. This is someone we never heard of. And now he has international basketball teams playing a tournament with the Big Baller logo at midcourt. The part of LeVar I could, take or leave, or I would prefer to leave, is when he's making comments about things that don't really directly concern him. When he's dealing with his own businesses and his, own sort of things that he has put together like this, I do find it very interesting because he is not traditional in any way, shape, or form. You could never confuse him for that.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I'll confirm that this drew my interest. We were in that same conference room. Hey, 1 p.m. Eastern on a Tuesday, there's not a whole lot of live sports going on around here when it comes to basketball, so it definitely caught our attention. It confirmed a few things for me. It confirmed that this is a business decision for LeVar Ball, putting on the Big Baller Brand Challenge, seeing the referees with triple B on the back of their referee shirts while they're doing this game. This is about money. It also confirmed that, to me, Lithuania loves basketball. I mean, the place was packed. It had the vibe, the atmosphere of a high-level high school, maybe low-level college game. Fans standing on each, baseline and into the game. So that was cool to see. It also validated that the Ball brothers have a lot of work to do on their game. And it validated that I don't know if this is the right fit for them to develop as professionals. I watched a few minutes straight of LiAngelo in there, and he would come down on offense, stand on the wing, and he didn't move. He didn't cut. He didn't go for a rebound. He didn't try to make a pass. If he touched the ball was going up. LaMelo came in and fired some awful three-pointers early on. So is this the best system style of basketball to further their career? I'm not sure on that one yet.
Two quick things. One is this was a junior game, so they were playing against kids who were really freshman age in college or senior year in high school. So it's not the level that they may get to play against while they're overseas. And the other part is about the money. Like, if you don't like what LeVar Ball says or he rubs you the wrong way, that's fine. But I find it a little odd that sometimes people are praised for their money-making endeavors and being entrepreneurs. And I think sometimes guys who are doing it without relying on the typical constructs in the system, they get yelled at for it. So I just find that to be
funny. I mean, I'm not knocking him for this being a business decision. I think it's just confirming, let's not fool ourselves. That's what this is about. He's trying to make money off of the brand, his boys, being in a country that's hoop crazy. And, hey, more power to him for doing it. Now, his business structure, there's some issues there as far as the reviews. There's a lawsuit against them, calling people small ballers, as we've talked about. So we'll see how the money and the business side goes down the road.
Yeah, he shouldn't be checking the comments section on the Big Baller Brand apparel. Now, both Nick Saban and the Giants are in the news, and now they're in it together, as former Cardinals coach Bruce Arians indicated Saban covets the open Giants head coaching job. You think there's any chance this happens? He takes that job, and would it be a good fit if he does?
I got to wait to see what Nick Saban says in reacting to this story, because if he says that there's no interest, then I think there's definite interest on his hand, because he has a track record of trying to fool the media with what he has to say. Remember the press conference in Miami. I will not coach the Alabama Crimson Tide football team. That was 2006. How'd that work out? Obviously, he's been there for 10 years. He's won 5 national titles with Alabama. So I don't necessarily believe what comes out of Nick Saban's mouth all the time. Bruce Arians, this is kind of an opinionated thing where he gave this take, but a couple of years ago, Saban was linked. There is a story out there that when Tom Coughlin parted ways with the Giants, at the very last minute, before the Giants made their coaching hire, Nick Saban or a representative reached out to the Giants and said, Nick Saban is interested in this job. And as the story goes, he had 2 days to decide. He had to check with his wife to see if they were going to move and go to New York. Ultimately, it came down to about $10 million a year that he wanted, and the Giants went in a different direction. But from that story, if you believe it, there was interest in Saban going to the Giants. As far as a fit, I do think he'd be a great fit for a dysfunctional locker room, a no-nonsense type of coach to straighten things out. I think he could work in New York. Look,
Saban is in a good spot in Alabama. I mean, all he does is get praised. That's a good place to be in. However, I could understand from an ego standpoint if he looks back at his career and says, oh, the one blemish is how I did in the NFL, and wants to course correct that. From the Giants' point of view, sure, it'd be worth a shot. Belichick didn't exactly work out when he was with the Browns, so I don't think we have enough of a sample of Saban as an NFL coach to say, hey, this can't happen. I mean, Pete Carroll wasn't great at first, and look what he did in Seattle. I don't think it's likely to take place, and I think it makes it even more difficult for Giants fans, say they hire Jim Schwartz or somebody, if they've been linked to Belichick and Saban. I did also see them linked to Matt Patricia, the Patriots defensive coordinator. But anytime you have the New York market and the New York media and these sort of figures out there, I think you're going to see these kind of stories.
Yeah, and you mentioned those prior failures. Obviously, Saban had a losing record in Miami. Pete Carroll was a losing coach with the Jets. Bill Belichick with the Browns, and look how those have turned out. I agree. If it happened, it could work out pretty good for Saban. Now, as the Patriots get ready for their divisional matchup with the Titans this weekend, Tom Brady continued the Patriots' trend of damage control. ESPN's report about the reported power struggle in Foxborough. Well, Brady went on the radio Tuesday. He took issue with the report that he celebrated the trade of Jimmy Garoppolo, saying, I think that such poor characterization. In 18 years, I have never celebrated when someone has been traded or been cut. Patriots have been doing their best to dispel this ESPN report going on, 5 days now. Who do you believe at this point, Robin?
I believe the report more than the Patriots. Just look at what actually took place when they traded Garoppolo. Why? Did that make sense? They'd been holding on to him for so long. He had played so well. And then all of the sudden, they trade him for a second-round pick when it looked like he was going to fetch more value than that prior. The timing doesn't add up. It didn't feel like a Patriots type of move at the time. So now that I see the story, I go, okay, yeah, it does make sense if Brady, whether or not he wants to say he celebrated, I don't know exactly what he did, but I can understand if he felt a certain type of way and basically conveyed the message, hey, it's going to be him or me, or you have to make a choice here, and Belichick was trying to groom Garoppolo. But the way it went down makes me believe that the reporting is more accurate than not.
Yeah, I'm siding with Brady on this one for a couple reasons. The more and more I read the report, this was a hatchet job on Tom Brady. And listening to his entire interview yesterday, and I covered Tom Brady for 7 years up in Boston, and seeing the player, but also the type of guy he is, how he deals with people. And a lot what he said in defending himself was, this doesn't fit how I live my life. I'm not a divisive person. This is not what I'm about. It's not who I am. And hearing Brady say that, it reminded me, it doesn't fit. It does not fit with his personality, some of the accusations thrown towards him in the Wickersham report. I'm convinced that the leaks, the anonymous sources, came from Belichick. This is a Belichick story, a pro-Belichick story through and through. Brady and Kraft are super, super tight. They always have been. I'm sorry. I'm siding with Belichick. I'm siding with Brady here. He's always been liked by his teammates. I can't imagine Tom Brady, the part in there, Robin, about him complaining about not being named Patriot of the Week. This is an MVP, a Super Bowl MVP.
They have their pictures up in the office.
The head cares about being the Patriot of the Week?
Maybe he didn't wear enough flair.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have some comments coming in on what we've been talking about, particularly LeVar Ball. So people are interested.
Yeah.
Chaz K. Nicholson says, this game was like the WWE. It was carefully picked business decision. While William McGriff says, LeVar Ball don't bite his tongue, and you keyboard warriors don't like it. Deal with it.
I like the WWE reference because it had that feel of a setup match, LeVar picking the teams of who his two boys are going to play against first. Yeah, I like it. The interest is there. There's no way to get around it. The interest has been generated.
My analogy has always been LeVar Ball was the Paul Heyman to Lonzo Ball's Brock Lesnar, doing the talking and the promoting for him. Meanwhile, some people might get promoted to offensive coordinator because the Seattle Seahawks have fired theirs, Darrell Bevell. This coming on the heels of the Carolina Panthers firing their OC, Mike Shula, leaving vacancies at coordinator for two of the best QBs in the league. So who would you rather be offensive coordinator for? Cam Newton or Russell Wilson?
This is a tough one because when you look at them, they're both highly talented. I think Cam's the more physically gifted of the two quarterbacks. And neither one of them, interestingly enough, despite their success, has never been surrounded by dynamic offensive talent. I mean, look at their receivers, who they had this year. Devin Funchess for Carolina and Doug Baldwin. Those aren't, prime-time marquee wide receivers. They've both had kind of rotating casts of running backs behind them throughout their career. So I'd love to have coordinate them and surround them with some talent. But, Robin, I'm leaning towards Russell Wilson for one reason here. Cam, physically gifted, more talented. The prima donna factor, though, I think is at a high level with Cam. I don't get that from Russell Wilson. He seems to be all business, all about wins. He's a Super Bowl champion. I'd love Russell Wilson and then have my pick of a receiver and a running back.
Yeah, this is a very tough question. To me, these two guys are both top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. If, no particular order, I would go Rodgers, Brady, Cam, Wilson, and Breeze probably. But they both do something special that nobody else really does. I think Russell Wilson's about as good as anyone ever at buying time for himself and for his team to make something happen. And then Cam Newton is just physically unlike anyone we've ever seen, where he can break off chunk plays in the running game and be your short yardage back and be your quarterback. In fact, when Cam Newton's at his best, when he's got the accuracy going, I think he's the best player in the NFL, period. So at their best, I'm picking Cam Newton, but I might agree with you slightly in the tiebreaker situation because Russell Wilson might be more consistently accurate, and I don't really have to worry about his press conferences.
Yeah, and when it comes to Cam and Russell Wilson, they share the similarity of at times being their leading rusher on their teams. They both play with their legs. I kind of feel like we were gypped with Cam. Cam came to play in that playoff game last weekend.
He was the only reason they were in the game.
His receivers did not. His receivers were dropping passes. It clearly got to him, and ultimately they just didn't have enough. But he gave everything he had. He was committed, engaged, and ready to go in that game. And I feel like if one of his receivers were on that same level, we might have been in the midst of a long Carolina, a long Cam run to maybe a Super Bowl here. Well, of course, Robin, Cam and Russell Wilson's seasons have come to an end, but with 8 teams remaining, there are plenty of elite quarterbacks and very intriguing matchups remaining. Which matchup would make the most entertaining Super Bowl? Well, Robin and I took a look at the possibilities.
All right, it's time to break out our super high-tech spin wheel in case this time to go over possible Super Bowl matchups and get our instant reaction to see how desirable or compelling said matchup is. We've included every possible pairing other than Titans, Eagles, and Jaguars, Vikings. Apologies to anyone who really wanted to see those teams play.
Apologies to who, though? Are they even out there, Robin? That's the question. No one wants to see those matchups.
Why don't you give this innovative piece of technology a spin?
All right, I'm going to do my best game show host here. Here we go.
The tension. I can feel it. I'm not so sure how I feel about that one. I mean, if Mariota gets there, there's a story about him, coming of age in front of our eyes in the NFL. And then the Saints have been maybe the best all-around team in the NFC. So it's not the worst matchup, but I don't see that generating epic ratings.
Yeah, this is okay. You've got the quarterback matchup, Breeze versus Mariota. Is it a changing of the guard, Mariota to take the helm that Breeze has had as that type of quarterback as Breeze is late in his career? A little bit of offensive firepower on the side of the Saints. This would be a grinded-out running game, though, between Ingram, Kamara, and Henry. There'd be a lot of handoffs in this game. I don't know how compelling that would be, but I give this a meh,
I think we oversold it a little bit. Yeah, I think we oversold
our best.
it. Let's see what we got coming up next. All right, this is slightly better than the last one. I mean, Matt Ryan was just there. The Steelers have been there. There are people and teams that are known in this matchup.
Oh, this may be my favorite of them all right here.
All of them.
Oh, we settled the debate. Julio Jones versus Antonio Brown. Who is the best wide receiver in the NFL? This would be highly entertaining. Two high-powered offenses, two established quarterbacks in Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger, and the defenses are pretty good. This would be a nice balanced matchup, which I think would be very entertaining.
So would you rather see this than a matchup of last year? A redemption?
I'd like to see the matchup, the redemption, and the rematch for other reasons, but from an entertainment standpoint, I think that's number one on my list.
All right, why don't you give it another?
All right, here we go.
Falcons Steelers was better than Vikings Steelers.
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Though I forgot about this. The hometown aspect of it is kind of interesting. You generally don't see teams play where they normally play in the Super Bowl, which would be the case for Minnesota.
Yeah, my thing is I want to see the Steelers in a shootout type of game, so we can see Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Ben Roethlisberger shine against that type of defense. You could picture a first half where the Steelers are having trouble just simply moving the football. That wouldn't get me too excited. I'd rather see the Steelers against a little bit more looser defense and let them throw the ball around a little bit.
If the Vikings make it, how many montages of Vikings highlights do you think we see over Prince music?
Especially their home field. How many times we're going to see their hometown game, Prince, Purple Rain, all over the place? Yeah, I agree. All right, let's spin it.
Oh, yes, we made it over Steelers-Vikings again.
Jags, Falcons, another one of these games where primarily we'd see a big rushing attack here, right? And I don't know. I respect running backs, but in Super Bowls, I'd like to see the high-scoring, spread-it-out offenses. You got, the two-headed monster that the Falcons come with, and Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, and obviously Leonard Fournette. They would lean on that. They're certainly not going to let Blake Bortles, let loose in a Super Bowl. Robin, honestly, anything with the Jaguars on it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, this could be a good game, but I think it is completely devoid of star power. The personalities that will sell the matchup, which is probably more important than anything when you're talking about building up the hype.
Another thing with these two, rough fan bases. Atlanta is not a great fan base supporting their team. Jacksonville, it's their only team. It's not a huge market. Not much buzz around
If you
that game.
combine their fan bases, you have a mediocre fan base.
They make a good market, a good team if they combine them. Yeah, you're right. All right, let's move on here.
That one's pretty good. Roethlisberger had contemplated retirement. Breeze is still playing well at the end of the line. You thought the Saints had converted into a running team. Then he went crazy against the Panthers. I think of the matchups, this might be right up there in the top three that you could possibly get. Two teams with players two teams with offenses that people know the skill position players on, and quarterbacks.
Yeah, and that's the key right there. What moves the needle in big games as far as buzz? It's the quarterback matchup. Two guys towards the end of their career, latter half of their career, trying to win one more. Both of them are Super Bowl champs. Plenty of firepower. Antonio Brown, Michael Thomas, Le'Veon Bell. You got the running game of the Saints, the two-headed monster that they bring. That's probably number two on my list. That would be very, very entertaining. A lot of star power. That's what you talk about. You want to get 2 weeks off there until you get to that Super Bowl. You need something to talk about. Plenty to talk about in that game.
You know what I like about this so far? Despite the odds, we haven't gotten to the Patriots yet.
Yeah, they haven't been once. Is that a sign? All right, I'm going to give you the mock spin here. Boom. Give me your thoughts on that, a rematch.
Well, they won't blow a 28-3 lead at halftime again, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see this. We're ranking which ones we'd like to see most. This is probably in my top three, to see if Dan Quinn can right the ship of what happened last year. Can Matt Ryan and company correct? Can they take their first half from last year's Super Bowl and turn it into 60 minutes of football? And the news surrounding the Patriots, them back at the Super Bowl, the buzz, the questions, the media coverage, Brady, Belichick, Kraft, that would be a storyline that would carry us through 2 weeks.
I made the jokes about nobody wanting to see the Patriots, but in fact, they probably are the most interesting team, all things considered.
Yeah, you talk about storylines, personalities, plenty of them in that rematch of the Super Bowl.
The latest NCAA men's basketball poll is out with a shakeup atop the top 25 rankings. SI's college basketball writer Dan Green is here now. Villanova, number one. To you, are they the best team in the country?
This is sort of a cop-out answer, but one very fitting with the season we're having. I don't know. A lot of the top teams keep losing. We've had 4 of the top 5 teams last week lost. Villanova is very, very good. They have 2 legitimate All-America guys in Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. But they were number 1 2 weeks ago, and they fell because they got lit up by Butler on the road. They have some defensive lapses that we're not necessarily used to seeing from Villanova. They're still a little bit vulnerable that way. But what we're seeing this year is that there's no real dominant team. There's no truly great elite team. There's not a lot of separation up there. So Villanova is absolutely right in that conversation for best team in the country. Michigan State just lost. I think they're still right in that conversation as well. If Duke cleans up their defense a little bit, they'll absolutely be there. Wichita State with Marcus McDuffie back will be in that conversation too. So what we're going to see is a cluster of teams that all can contend, make a big push in the tournament. But we're not going to enter March with that dominant team and that team where people are going to say, oh, they can't lose or they can't lose. So we're still sorting out kind of the hierarchy there. But the good thing for those of us watching is that it should make for a pretty good tournament, pretty good postseason where there's no dominant team and things can go in a lot of different directions.
2 teams you didn't mention there, number 2 and 3, West Virginia and Virginia respectively. 2 teams, they kind of fly under the radar. It sounds like they did with you too, as you were listing off the powers that be in the national polls. 2 teams stymieing defense. Are these just 2 solid regular season teams, Dan, or could West Virginia and Virginia actually make runs come March?
They absolutely can make runs because of those defenses. Those defenses are so hard to prepare for. If you talk to coaches and players about how you simulate them, if they've never seen anything like that before, they say you can't simulate that. It's really hard to prepare. So that helps them a lot in the tournament sense, especially if you play them on the second game of a weekend where you only have 1 day to prepare. But with these 2 teams, those defenses are great. Their offenses aren't quite at that elite level, and so those could hold them back a little bit in terms of being at that next tier. The way these polls have gone this year, you're a good team, you move up when the teams ahead of you lose, and things are kind of a revolving door that way. They absolutely, the way things are shaping up, as I said, there's no dominant team, so these 2 teams could end up in that Final Four, and they both could make a run. Virginia's been kind of tagged semi-unfairly as not being able to translate this to the postseason. They haven't broken through to the Final Four, and with all these great defenses under Tony Bennett, they probably should have 2 years ago when they lost that Elite 8 game to Syracuse. But this could be the year they do it. Villanova showed a couple years ago that when we think of teams that can't get it done in the postseason and exit too early, it just takes 1 run to dispel that. So West Virginia and Virginia, no one's going to want to see them come March. And these are teams that absolutely can go on a run and are in that conversation as well, but their offenses don't necessarily have the same firepower you're used to seeing from those contenders.
Now, North Carolina had the biggest fall, going from 12 to 20 after losing 2 games last week. What's wrong with the defending champs?
It's a little bit tough to peg. They're not one of those teams you look at that has some obvious glaring weakness. Like some other teams that have stumbled a little bit more than expected. Duke, you look at their defense. Kansas, you look at their interior depth. With North Carolina, they're young. They're turning the ball over a little bit more than they like, and they don't force a lot of turnovers, so they're kind of on the wrong end of that possession give and take in that sense. And one of the other things, they haven't shot very well in ACC play. Part of that is when you play Virginia and Florida State back-to-back, especially on the road, that's going to happen. But they also, they don't defend the three-point line particularly well. And it's been shown one of the easiest ways to defend the three-point line or defend against three-point shooting is to not allow a lot of opportunities. They're allowing a lot of opportunities, and teams are shooting at a pretty decent rate, I think 37% right now. And so the result is that 41% of the points that North Carolina has given up this year have been from beyond the three-point line. That's the second highest rate in the country. And that can bite you in a hurry, especially when you're facing the caliber of teams that you do in ACC play, and especially when the stakes get higher a couple months down the line. So if there's one thing that North Carolina has to try to address is try to deny those three-point opportunities and deny quality three-point opportunities. And and then take care of the ball better, and you can cut down on possessions and make the baskets you give up not hurt as much.
Thanks, Dan. We'll see where the Tar Heels are the next time we talk as the season rolls along.
Thank you.
All right, we've got some comments coming in from Facebook and Twitter on the topics we've discussed already. Ricky Alexander says, why would Saban start over this late in life, referring to him possibly being interested in the Giants job?
Yeah, late in his 60s. I don't know, guys. Want to put a bow on their career maybe? Finish off with a job that maybe Saban has always dreamed in his career of having. To go to New York and finish with some kind of success would be a nice end to a historic career.
Well, it's the only thing in his career that people could deem a failure.
Right.
How he performed in the NFL, so he would want to have that record look pristine. It makes sense. Jared Melcher says, I would like to see how good Saban actually is and see him go to try to turn the Giants around. Go Eagles.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure he's really hoping that they turn the Giants around, right? Be interesting if Saban did go there with the conflicting personalities with Odell Beckham Jr. and Nick Saban. That would be fascinating to see how that played out. He'd obviously have to decide at quarterback, but it's a different game. I mean, the track record says he failed in the NFL. I think that would be the driving force for him coming back. Like you said, it's the one aspect of his career that he has failed at. Could he come back, be a winner in the NFL? Let's face it, these coaches, Robin, there is ego in play, whether you're 45 or 65 years old, and that's a big driving force.
Let's remember, the Giants are not the Browns. I mean, they had a really bad season, but they were in the postseason 2 years ago. Beckham was hurt. It's not like it's inconceivable that somebody could come in and turn that team around. Many were picking them to win the NFC East. Dudley Hall says, look, I like LeVar Ball, but sometimes you can bite off more than you can bear. I think the expression is chew. And yeah. Dad is doing a lot of biting from a concerned fan, that's all.
Well, what is he concerned about? I guess I'm not sure what the concern is. He's biting. He's going to bite as much as he wants because it's out there for him to bite and chew and do whatever he wants with. Hey, LeVar Ball's not going anywhere. Like him, hate him. I probably lean towards one side of that a little more than the rest, but we're going to see a lot more of LeVar Ball, especially if he is making money over there in this venture in Lithuania. He's going to continue with these type of ideas and ventures down the road.
Plus, people have to stop acting like this is a crisis, you know, where we're talking about basketball. We're not talking about some bigger issues when people bring it out to society. Right. Renard Marjan says, people also care about the Kardashians. That doesn't make the topic worth being shown.
Yeah, but people watch the Kardashians by the millions, and the Kardashians, that's what Steve Kerr has called the ball.
It's not a bad comparison.
The Kardashians of the NBA, it's a great comparison. It's reality TV at its finest, and it's
reality TV at its most watched, maybe.
Yeah, at its most watched, but it's live reality TV. I mean, think about that. All these other pre-produced, reality shows, whether it be the Kardashians, the Real Housewives, you name it, these are taped and edited. We're watching this life unfold live yesterday in Lithuania with the star characters all in attendance right there. No editing involved there.
Yep, right before the show, actually, I watched a clip of LeVar Ball talking to LiAngelo right after the shoplifting incident. Now, they clearly had time to prepare, so he could have prepared how he presented it on camera, but I would give him a good job. He did a good job of talking to LiAngelo right after that whole incident, in my opinion.
You know what? They've always said the best reality TV is live sports. You never know what's going to happen. Well, they've combined it. Is LeVar responsible? Hey, he could be called a genius down the road. We'll see. That's going to do it for this non-small baller edition of SI Now. Of course, we'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Until then, be sure to stick with us on SI.com and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And keep commenting on LeVar Ball. We know you're watching. We know you like it.